to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to another edition of the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Always excited, of course, to be here with everybody today. And, of course, if you do want to support this program, I always appreciate it. Please just hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. And, of course, give the show a like and a follow elsewhere, on other social media platforms such as Facebook, for example. And I do appreciate your support. So today, I have an interview with the keyboard player from a band called Mob Rules, power metal band. That is Jan Christian, and they have a new album coming out called Rise of the Ruler. It's going to be coming out here later in the year, but I have to say the album is incredible, and I definitely wanted to interview somebody from the band on this show. Now, I have followed Mob Rules since the late 90s, since the debut album came out, and I have followed them throughout the course of the band's existence. I own all of their albums, and I've always thought of them as being one of the more underrated power metal bands out there. Well, today I brought Jan on the show. We talk about the upcoming album. We talk about his tenure in the band. And the cool thing about this interview is that him and we grew up liking the same bands as a kid and young adult, especially when it comes to power metal. So we have a lot in common when it comes to that. He was a lot of fun to talk to. And without waiting any further, here's the interview with, of course, Jan from Mob Rules. Check it out. Welcome, everybody, back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Today, I have a guest, Jan Christian from the band Mob Rules, a power metal band that I have followed since the debut album. And it is great to have you on this show today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to hear that you followed us to the beginning. So,
yeah,
wow, great.
Yeah, it was funny because back in the old days, you guys, I remember all the old bands that were on Limb Music at the time. Those were, there was a really great group of bands that came out. And obviously, I remember when the debut came out so many years ago. So it's, I'm listening to this record now, and I'm like, I think this record is absolutely fantastic. Probably, I posted this on my Facebook page that I think it's probably one of, if not one of the best records you guys have ever done. So definitely it's pretty cool to see that this band has continued on for as many years as they have.
Wow, yeah, nice to hear this. Yeah. It seems we're getting old. It's weird to hear. In this time, I'm not a member of the original band, so I'm over 10-15 years now in Mob Rules, but at this point, for me, it was my childhood as well, and I remember that era of power metal bands, and there were a lot of bands who didn't exist anymore, so I'm very proud that Mob Rules still does music until today, and it feels good to be part of this old era of bands who still keeps this kind of power metal alive, so I'm very happy to be part of it now.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, when you came into the band, you came in on the album Cannibal Nation.
Yeah, right. It's my first one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that is one of the more interesting albums the band has put out. Talk about joining these guys. How did that all come about? And when you look back, how do you look at that album now, looking back at it?
For me, it's a very important one. It's when I listen to Cannibal Nation, for each song, I have so many pictures in my head because I knew how it was to start this band and to start being in this band. We are from the same area, and I do metal since my childhood. And there's a special place, my birthplace, Nordenham. It's this very small town, but it has a very vivid music scene, and this is all surrounded by one club, I would say. I've been working there, and there where I met Sven and where I did a lot of music. And then I moved to Oldenburg. It's a bigger city around, and there I met the old keyboarder of Mob Rules and Klaus. So I knew them, and I was constantly playing in different bands. And at a certain point, as Sasha, the old keyboarder, left the band, then they asked me, and I joined in. And it was so different than, for example, we were in the same club where I played with my old band, and playing in the same club with my Bulls was so different. Somebody was carrying my keyboard. We got good dinner instead of having to wait for hours. And
Yeah.
to be part of this real metal scene and to be able to play on bigger festivals, to meet other musicians I've heard before in my childhood room and now play together with them. It was a great time for me. And it's all connected to Cannibal Nation. So these new experiences, being in a signed band and being able to play shows like this, I always feel these enthusiastic and these emotions when I hear Cannibal Nation. So for me, it has always a special place in my heart.
Yeah. No. So, who were some of the people that you ended up meeting early on that were bands that maybe you follow that you got to meet, that you finally were excited to meet and see, and when you first joined, after joining the Mob Rules?
For example, Gamma Ray. Gamma Ray was a band I really liked in my childhood. And we played a little tour with Brainstorm as a band. We've been in a tour bus for 3 weeks together. Rage is an example. Even now, in a few months, we have a show with Blind Guardian. Blind Guardian was the band who defined my taste in metal, and
Yeah.
and more of them. But the great thing about it is when you meet a band as fans. So you're a fan and say, "Hey, I like your albums," but when you meet such people as a musician, so you're on a totally different level, and you have the chance to really talk about music and exchange the experiences, and that's what was so great for me to be now part of the scene and not just only a fan who's watching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man, you just named a whole bunch of my favorite bands.
awesome.
You know what I'm saying? It's like Rage and Blind Guardian, Gamma Ray. I mean, these are all bands that have not only been on the show, but they're bands I grew up with. So I totally get where you are coming from, because again, these are people in the States probably don't know this, but a lot of these bands are pretty legendary musicians. So that's pretty cool. You got to meet a lot of those guys. And actually, you guys touring with Gamma Ray would be really cool, or playing with Blind Guardian. Brainstorm is a huge favorite of mine as well. And their new album, I think, is absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, that's cool, man. So let's talk about this new album, Rise of the Ruler.
Yes.
Because I would say, it's a really, really good power metal album. I'll tell you a weird thing about the record for me is I love the album, and this is the only album I think I've ever listened to where the first song is my least favorite track.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird because I like the record a lot. I like the first song. It's just I remember I was like, man, when I heard the first song, I don't know what it is. I go, it's pretty solid, but then you get to the second track and you get to the third track. Like when you get to Future Loom, I'm like, man, this is really this classic European power metal. And it's done really, really well. And talk about this record, maybe compared to the last one, Beast Reborn. And it's been a while since you've recorded an album too.
Nah, too long. Much too long.
I mean, it's like 7 years.
It is, yeah.
And so, how would you compare, for people that haven't heard the whole thing? I've heard it. How would you compare it to the last album?
I would say with Beast Reborn, we somehow, the title says it, we tried to reinvent mob words a little bit more. And by saying reinvent, we always had in mind, okay, let's go a little bit back into the old days. So a lot of people like you appreciate the first two albums. And after this Cannibal Nation, Tales from Beyond, we had the feeling that Beast Reborn, let's go become again more heavy, more straight, more not too complex songwriting, but on certain points have melodies, have some twist inside. And I think it went very well with Beast Reborn, but we took too long, of course, to make our new record, and a lot of things happened during that time, and we had a lot of meetings inside with our band. Feels like a psychotherapy, I would say. And our drummer left and so on. And then we thought about, okay, what defines Mob Rules? What is our essence? What is our uniqueness? And during I would say, after Hallowed Be Thy Name, we did a lot of experimental stuff, tried one of these, tried one of this. And with our new album, we wanted to refocus on what our strengths are, what on a certain heaviness. And I think Rise of the Ruler is more consistent. It has ups and downs, it has different tracks, but the things we started on Beast Reborn, but was a great album. But if you listen to it, it doesn't feel so like it has the I don't know if to say the red.
I think with what you're probably looking for, and this is how I view it, I think the new album flows a lot better.
That's a good, yeah. That's a flow. It has a constant flow, yeah. And that's what we wanted to achieve. And somehow go back to our roots and what makes Mob Rules somehow unique. Everybody tries to be unique, but there are people out like you who say, okay, I liked your old albums, and they have a certain feeling. And it's so hard to describe sometimes what makes this feeling special, but where these feelings come from. But we try to somehow focus on what it was and bring it into the new album. And I hope we did it. And to listen to you, it seems like we somehow managed to recreate this atmosphere. And that's the main difference.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. There's a certain feel that a record has. I was just talking about this in a review I just did. It feels like the band is a little more relaxed, and the album flows better, and just the way the songs are written. And the thing was that I remember when I was listening to this, that was probably one of the first things I noticed about it.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, then that's what we wanted to achieve. And it has a topic. This is one thing that I really appreciate, that we have our story continued. So that was the main idea. Yeah. Savageland and Temperature of Two Suns had a story, it had a scenario, it had a certain look and feel, and that's something that we've lost over the years. If you describe what is Mob Rules, then you maybe would say, okay, they sound a little bit like this band, or they do a little bit like that. But I think with Rise of the Ruler, we managed to have one thing that you can grab. Okay, this is this dystopian wasteland feeling, and we have a consistent story that we tell, and we have characters, and the songs follow the storyline. I think that's what makes also the flow more consistent, that you can hear a story, and even if you don't listen to the lyrics, but the mood of the songs also transport some kind of a story. That's the plans.
Why did you guys decide to kind of, I don't know I guess you would call it kind of a sequel to, some of the earlier concept albums? Why did you decide to go and write about that again?
Yeah, it was in these meetings where we talked about that. Even at Beast Reborn, we somehow said, we want to be more like our first album, and somehow go back to these albums. And then we said, okay, when we want to be like the first album, why don't we start where we've stopped in that years and really continue with this topic, with this theme? Yeah. And the great thing is when you do art, or when you be creative, when you have a certain anchor that you can build around, when you have images in your head, and when you have a story, then everything connects more. And that was the idea. Okay, let's be that. And that comes with our videos, with our outfits, with the cover artwork, the way the songs are written, the way the lyrics are written. It all now goes into one point and tells one story. And if you put it all together, then it has a more consistent feeling. And we wanted to continue the old albums, and then I said, okay, when we continue the story, then it's a great point, or even to show the fans from the old albums, hey, we are going back to Savageland, like our first single, and maybe you like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that the album doesn't sound like the early albums, and I think that's fine. And actually, I would probably say the song "Back to Savageland" is probably one of the better tracks on the album. It's just the way the songs are written. The extra time that you had in between this album and the last, did that really help kind of refine the songwriting a bit for you? Because again, it's 7 years, but the album, I got to be honest, I even posted this on my Facebook page. The album, I think, I'm not as into as many power metal or traditional metal bands, but this record really, it sort of surprised me because I liked their last record. I thought it was pretty solid, but I was like, man, I'm listening to this. And I'm like, these guys really took their music to a different level. You really did.
Wow, thank you.
And I think, sometimes, you get that extra time, you can refine the songs. You don't have crazy deadlines, and that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like it's just a relaxed album, and everything about the record, the way the songs are written, even, it just, I don't know. It's hard to say, but when I look at this band's discography, it's hard for me to not put this one towards the top.
Wow, thank you. I would say we as a band got more relaxed. So we had to really overcome some struggles. Back
Yeah.
in the Beast Reborn time, we put a lot of effort into this album, but it really drained or sucked out our energy, to be honest. The production was really hard and really tough, and in the end we were all very nervous and stressed out, and this atmosphere was also in the band. So after it's finished, we were all
Mhm.
tired, and then we did a lot of touring with it, which was fun. Corona kicked in, of course, and this calmed us down. We had the luck that we were just finished with everything. We just finished our tours, and when Corona came, we were down to zero. So we had nothing. This was the point where we should have started something new, but we couldn't.
Mhm.
So we waited, and in this time where we couldn't do nothing, we reworked everything that went wrong to the Beast Reborn time, and we really had sessions in our rehearsal room with a flip chart, and everybody was able to talk about, okay, what annoys me, what pisses me on, what goes wrong, what do I want to do different. And we had a lot of talks together and really redefined how we work each other, somehow redefined our friendship. In this process, at some point, Nicolas, our drummer, who was responsible for a lot of tasks in the band, also left the band, and this forced us again to rearrange and to restructure. And this made us more friends, more relaxed, and this placed some kind of behavior that was much better than before. And the new album,
Yeah.
the production and the songwriting and everything went much more smooth because we learned somehow to respect each other, to know our limits, how to talk to each other, how to avoid everything that went wrong in the Beast Reborn time. And I think this is the most important factor. This out of this more fluid, more friendly atmosphere, this is reflected into the music. So we redefined ourselves, and yeah, it's a long time. And as you said, after this long time, there was no deadlines anymore. So we were also down to zero. So we decided, let's make it good
Yeah.
and not hurry up. Now take the time we need, and then we can do our best. And when we have to return, this is another point. When you have to return after seven years, that it must be somehow good. If you then put out something lousy or something that is fast crafted, that would disappoint everybody. So this was the only pressure to say, okay, when we return, then it must be good. So otherwise, it makes no sense.
Well, I could tell you, my expectations on it were it exceeded them because, again, and it's hard to say when a band comes back after a long time. Probably one of the more disappointing things is if the album's bad. But you guys didn't do that. It's just a classic, old school, straight ahead power metal album. And I think the songs are really well written. I think everything's placed where it needs to be. And I think that's probably one of the best things I could say about this record in general. You have an earbook coming out. You have a bonus disc. I know that because I just pre-ordered it just while I was talking to you.
Oh, great.
Because it's got a disc of some extra songs on it. And you have some cool. You have like a narration on it, which I'm intrigued to know a little bit more about if you know what I'm talking about. But there's like a narration.
It is,
Back to
yeah.
Savageland narration. So what is that? You have some remixes of a few tracks. You have some bonus tracks that didn't make the record. But I looked at that. I was a little bit intrigued, and I'm like, I should probably pick this up. And that's what I just did.
This earbook is an insane project. When I said, okay, everything went smooth and everything was good, then Klaus Insanity, our singer, kicked in. He's a guy who's full of ideas, and
Yeah.
at a certain point, we said, okay, we need some bonus stuff, okay, and then maybe we can make an EP with some new stuff. Maybe we can make an earbook, and it grew and grew. And suddenly, instead of doing some bonus tracks, to be honest, these are not tracks that are left over. We've written another half album, especially for this EP. It has its own story. It tells the story of Weißes the Ruler from a different perspective, and the songs are really good. It's no leftovers. It's really new songs that we've actually written for this thing. Then we made a photo documentary of our video shoots with a really high quality. I've written a lot of text to describe the story. We have liner notes about each song. So what's the idea behind it? How is it created? So
Yeah.
it's really a book. You can read it. We have some artworks from our cover designer, and yeah, this narration. I'm very proud of it because it really tells the story. And I don't know if you ever heard about the band Regicide.
Yes.
You know them, really?
Well, just remember that I've been doing this almost 30 years.
Yeah, it's long ago since they did the last album, but they are from the singer Timo is a good friend of mine, and they also come from our hometown. And he has a voice to lay down. He can read phone books, and you would like to listen to it.
Yeah.
And he did the narration for us. So we have 11 minutes of really telling the whole story of the album with some sound effects underneath. So the regular album, you heard the intro. That's his voice. So in this style of the intro, the whole story is told by him, and I am very happy with the result. I hope somebody will take the time to listen to it, because I really like how
you're saying Regicide, right?
Regicide, yeah.
Regicide, yeah. I remember. I think it was, what was the name of the album? Traveling Minds. I think that might have been the debut. I could be wrong, but
yeah. And then they had the second one was Break the Silence, I guess.
Yeah. They had
awesome
Break the
band.
Silence. They had a lot of good. I remember the debut album. Came to me. I don't know how it came to me, but it was like early 2000s, 2001.
It is, yeah.
02.
At this point, yeah.
Yep. I mean, I remember them. I grew up. I mean, most of this show started out with a lot of me. It was a radio show, and I started out. Most of the bands I was playing on were from Europe. From Germany. So, a lot of these power metal bands, like you bring in that band up, I'm like, wow, I haven't heard of them in ages. But I don't think they're around anymore, right? I don't think the band itself is really playing or anything like that, if I remember correctly.
No, they don't do anything. They split up after their second album, and they tried to reunite 5 years ago. They did a short EP. It's available on Spotify, but that was it. But Timo, as I said, is a good friend, and his voice is awesome, really. And if he talks to you, even having on the phone is always fun.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm glad he brought them up. Yeah, there's a lot of power metal bands. Like you said earlier, there are a lot of power metal bands that aren't really around anymore. But yeah, you just brought one up. I'd have to go revisit those records, because I have those albums still. After all this time, but I think the last album might have came out 06 or 07 or 2014. I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely remember the band. That's cool that his voice is on the narration. That's interesting.
Yeah. This earbook is really it became a huge project. So normally we didn't have to do it big like this, but somehow in the process the idea spread, and from 1 to 2, now we have 5 bonus tracks, and they really, I can promise, this are no leftovers. They are produced for this EP, and they have a certain style. And we have an intro song that is a reminiscence to the old Savageland album. So we took the theme of Pianista, if you
Yeah.
remember that song, and rearranged it. And the story, as I said, it tells the same story of the album from a different perspective. So it loses some legs, I would say. And yeah, everybody who owns it, I guess, will get a nice piece of history from our band.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's worth the $60 I just paid for it.
It is. No, it's quite expensive. Yeah.
That's really not
If-
too bad. I mean, people don't realize that earbooks are. I mean, when you open those up, I mean, it's a hardbound book with, you know, it's a hardbound book with a lot of really cool artwork and a lot of stuff in it. I have a few earbooks from different bands actually, and I think that it takes a lot to put those together because you have to
Yeah.
get content for them. It's not like a CD or a digipack where you have a little tiny booklet and you're done with it. Earbook. I mean, they're pretty elaborate, but everybody always has this notion that if it's a bonus track, it must suck and it shouldn't have been on the album. But every band has tracks that you're just like, I can't really put this on there. It doesn't flow with the rest of the record. It doesn't mean the song is bad. It just means that it just means it just doesn't fit, in this group of tracks that we have. So, because if the song sucks, you wouldn't have an incentive to buy, a special edition of a record. So it's kind of how that goes.
It's for me the same. We are all fans as well, and I totally hate if I buy a CD and there's these shitty bonus tracks that are unfinished versions of a finished track, or just put together poorly, or tracks where if the band says, okay, this track didn't make it on the album because it sucks, then we put it on the bonus track and you have to buy for it. So that's shit, man. And we wanted to avoid this. And we had one treasure because there was one certain track. It's a power ballad called Above the Maelstrom. It was intentionally meant for the normal album, and it was, by rating and by all the thing, it was one of our favorite tracks. We really, really liked this track, but it didn't fit in so well. So at this point of the story and from the album, it somehow disturbed the flow because there were also with Providence, there's a track that starts a little bit slower, and at this point in the album, it felt wrong, and it was a hard decision for us to say, okay, this track doesn't fit into this position where it's meant to be. When you write a story, you can put it on another place of the album. It has to be there. So we replaced it with Trial and Trail of Fear, who's more powerful at this point, and this part was needed there. And so Above the Maelstrom was placed on this bonus CD, but for us, it's one of our, I would say it's the best power ballad we've ever written. So it raises the bar very high, and we knew, okay, we put it there, and the other tracks must be on a equal level. So we did a lot of effort in the songwriting that it doesn't sound strange if you have shitty tracks and one good track, shitty tracks. So it shouldn't be like this. That was our measure point to somehow deal with this song.
Yeah. No. So, all right, different topic. You're a power metal fan. If I had to put you on the spot right now, what's your favorite Gamma Ray album?
My favorite Gamma Ray album? Oh, okay, that's easy for me because it's childhood memory. Somewhere Out in Space. I love it. I heard it times and times.
Yeah.
The CD in my old car, and it was on.
So I'll tell you. Yeah, so I will tell you. Number one, that's my favorite Gamma Ray album, and it's interesting. When I don't know if you've heard it, but the upcoming Halloween album, there's a song called "We Can Be Gods" that Kai Hansen wrote, and it has that same, for me, it has that same feeling.
Oh, really?
Somewhere Out in Space. Yeah, there's so when you listen to the record, it's the fourth song on the album. There's this bridge part that goes before the chorus of the song, and when you hear the vocal melodies of everybody all three singers singing on it,
oh, great!
it like feels like Somewhere Out in Space. It feels like it could be on that album. And and it's interesting too because you can't predict which. Normally on the album, you can kind of think, okay, this person's going to sing this line, this person's going to sing that line. But this record, you don't know who's going to sing next. But it reminds me of he actually revisited a lot of the sci-fi alien themes, and there's a song that reminds me of Somewhere Out in Space. That to me was like one of the definitive power metal albums. I remember that and the first Iron Savior album because they were kind of intertwined. They had a song. They both had a song together, believe it or not. Watcher in the Sky. That was actually, there were two different versions.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of like if the old Ozzy Osbourne Motorhead, they had each one did their own version of a song called Hellraiser way back in the day, and now it's funny you mentioned Somewhere Out in Space because I could still go and listen to that album.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible record. It really is. It's so funny you mention that because I just reviewed the Halloween album and I'm like this one song sounds like Somewhere Out in Space, which
I will give it a try. Good to mention.
Which is really cool. Hey man, they got their air book out, so it's coming out too and on the RPM site. So yeah, but it's funny you mention that because that was the second song or second album when Kai started singing. Again, they had Land of the Free, but Somewhere Out in Space was at a different level for me. But it's cool that you mentioned that. Blind Guardian too. What's your favorite Blind Guardian album?
Oh, that's harder. Just to kick in, I'm very happy with the new one. I really like to listen to it, but of course,
same with same with me. I think the newest album was really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. But of course, there are also the childhood memories. But these three ones. It depends on my mood, but I think Somewhere Far Beyond is that special one. I 2 days ago, I was driving my car and suddenly I felt like I need it now, and then I put it on and felt happy by listening to it. So depending on the story, it's Somewhere Far Beyond.
Yeah, that's still a monumental power metal release. I would, it's probably one of my top maybe 2 or 3 records by them. I think, when you get to like Tales from the Twilight World, Somewhere Far Beyond, Imaginations, From the Other Side, Nightfall, Middle Earth, those 4 records. And it's crazy because they came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
When this music really wasn't all that big. I mean, it came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
They were putting that kind of music out, which is crazy to think about.
I remember the time. I remember a good friend of mine who was a huge fan, and he came totally hyped to school and said, "It's a new single from Blind Guardian. You have to listen to it." It was Mirror Mirror, and the first time I heard it, whoa, that's heavy. It's cool. It was the first time I got in touch with this band. He had some of these old Nokia not smartphones, old Nokia phones, and one of the first ones where you could program your ringtones, just monophonic. And he programmed Mirror Mirror on his Nokia phone. Every time you called him, it was beep, 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 beep.
Yep, I remember. Man, I remember the CD single. I'll tell you a really funny story about that album. I started the show in 1998, and it was right around the time that Nightfall Middle Earth came out. And I remember somebody from Virgin Records at the time wanted to send me a song to check out, and we had to, because back then it was all you had to get CDs in the mail. It wasn't like streaming or anything like that.
Yeah.
I remember he sent me an MP3 of the song "The Curse of Fëanor," and it took 45 minutes to download it.
Hell yeah, good idea.
So yeah, those were the old days, man. And I remember getting Hansi on the phone, and like he was shocked anybody even really knew the band back then, because metal was just like it was really not.
Yeah,
it's a lot. There are more people now into it now than they were back then in the 90s. It was like the dark ages. So pretty interesting. Yeah, Somewhere Far Beyond's a monumental album, man. It really is. And the crazy thing is, like Mob Rules, I mean, your first album was like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So you were on the band was actually on Limb Music with all these other bands like Angra, and you had Rhapsody. I mean, that was like the big one that had come out. And so it's hard to believe the band's been around that long. Like I look at I remember I still have the first album, still the first CD I bought from the band. So it's interesting that after all this time, the band is still around, because a lot of the power metal bands, some of the newer ones really, I mean, some of them are still around, but a lot of them are gone. You just named one earlier. So, interesting. Yeah.
I think one I don't know if it's the truth, no one can say, but we are often hear this, oh, why is Mabul's not as big as other bands? And yeah, it's a good question, to be honest, but
Yeah.
maybe this helped us through the year on the other side, because when you're in the music business, it's a quite hard business, and when you manage to reach a certain point where you can live, or where you have to live from this music, or where you're forced to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of touring, and this leads to split a lot of bands. So bands who are higher often have to give up because they can't take this touring anymore, or they do so much that they can't do normal jobs anymore, but money isn't enough to keep the band alive. And this is what destroyed I guess a lot of these bands from this time. And the bands who remain are these ones who made it to the top, or bands like us who never reached that crucial moment. So we had the freedom to be creative, to do our music, and we were lucky enough that we were always able to do albums, to create music, to go on tour, to play shows, but on that level that everybody from us could manage it between the daily life. And I don't know if that's the reason, but it could be that a lot of bands broke down on this pressure. Retrosite, for example, they also reached this crucial point, and at this point, they broke up because they couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
And that happens. Some band, I can't remember the name of the band now, but I was talking to a former member of I can't remember what power metal band it was, but they were actually doing well, and they kind of hit this roadblock, like they hit like writer's block, and they just couldn't think of anything that they could put out that would be good. And they just kind of said, you know what, let's just go on hiatus or call it a day. Mm-hmm. And that was it. So you run into that, or you just lose the drive to want to do it sometimes too. And you take a break and you realize that you don't want to revisit it right now. Then maybe 10, 15 years you do. So
yeah, maybe, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So I got to be honest. I think this record is, I mean, it's really good. You have some videos out for it, obviously, which came out, which is cool. You have Trail of Fear. So I think that video is it's a really good song too, Trial and Trail of Fear. Maybe talk a bit about that one.
Try and Trail of Fear. It was a song that came very late on the album. As I said, we had to replace our power ballad because at this point another track was needed, and we wanted to have a more heavy track. In the story, it's the moment when you watch a film, there's a certain moment of despair where everything seems to go down and the heroes lose their face. And this is exactly the point in the story where this song kicks in. So it tells about hard times, struggles you have to go through, where you have to force yourself to push to a certain situation. So the name said, the Trial and Trail of Fear. And this musical feeling is the foundation of this song. So it starts with this somehow melancholic piano start, and then I think it's obvious that Klaus and Sven, who are the main songwriters, are big Judas Priest fans at the moment. So I guess there are some influences from that part. But yeah, we tried to write a song that is more straight at this point. So the album was nearly finished, and we needed some song that has a certain drive we found where we saw it. And so the song came in with this drive, then with this very speedy solo part to bring a fresh nuance of sound in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a twist of melancholic and heaviness. That was the idea behind.
Yeah, the title "Rise of the Ruler."
Yeah,
what was it about this record? Why did you pick that as the title?
The ruler is our band mascot. So when you remember Savageland or Temple of Two
Yep.
Suns, there's always this guy on the cover with this strange mask. And like every band in the 90s, we also had our band mascot, and it was the ruler. So it was this person, and all the stories were written around this guy. It's
Yeah.
in the
guy,
story. It's
the guy in the big throne, right? That's
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, that's the ruler. He's ruling, and the story is shortly tell about in a dystopian world where everything went down and just a few people survived. There's a group of survivors who want to find a new home, and there's this guy, the ruler, a very ambivalent person. So on the one hand, he's a good guy who leads them out of this wasteland into a green valley. But on the other hand, he's a ruler. He's a guy who has power and has his own obstacles and his own goals. So it's not quite clear if he's a good or evil one. And that's the person in the first album. They wander through Savageland. In the second album, they reach the Green Valley and build up a new society. And he is now the ruler. You can see him sitting on the temple and obeying some stars and thinking about some higher forces to come down. So that's the story. In our new album, I want to some spoilers. The story is also settled 30 years after the events, so as our band evolved. And the main idea was what happens if this person who has this balance and he's good, he's evil, now really turns evil. And this is what you see in the videos. It's said that the ruler over the years somehow fall into insanity on his evil side to command. And so he does some cool decisions. And there's a young temple guard, Dendaya is his name, who rebels against this ruler and said, okay, it's enough now. But the rebellion failed, so he and the group are forced to leave the Green Valley and are back to Savageland because he wanted to set the story in the Savageland.
Yeah.
And during this event, the ruler dies out of his insanity. So our band mascot died. And then the story shows that this guy, Dendaya, who's a good guy, somehow turns into the new ruler. So in the end of the album, there's a new ruler, a new cycle repeats, and this good guy also gets some evil twists in the story. And so we tell the story of the rise of a new ruler. And that's the main thing. But if you think about our band, it's the same for us. We repeat our circle, and we, as Mob Rules, with our band mascots, we try to rise above our old obstacles and a new ruler, a new band. We're not the same band that we've been 30 years before. And this is somehow the meta layer of the story. So we as a band, we rise again, and the new ruler is rising, and that's all behind. We'll get a lot of more information in the yearbook, so I've written a lot of information about this.
Well, that's good. I'll be able to read it. I think the ruler needs to, raise the popularity of European power metal in the States.
I hope so.
I hope he does that. But no, it'd be interesting. The yearbook, you got me all excited for this now because, you're really good salesman because I said I pre-ordered it like right when I talked to you. So it's pretty funny. But a lot of times I buy physical copies of the album, and you were reminding me that I hadn't ordered the album yet. But yeah, it's cool, man. I like I said, I think the album, I think the songs are there. I think it flows well. I think a lot of people are really going to like this record, and I think it's night and day difference compared to the previous record. It definitely feels a lot better, but the songs are really, really good. And everybody performs really well on it. And that is why I really love this record as much as I do.
No, I'm so glad to hear this because I tell you a lot about this album and how we feel. And of course I can say, yeah, it's good, it's great, but I'm so into it and the production, of course. When you do some music, you of course believe that it's good, but it's really, really, really great to hear somebody like you who didn't hear it before and who knows everything that we did before says this. So I read your Facebook post before, and I was really happy reading it because that shows, okay, when somebody like you says he likes it, then I'm relieved that it worked out what we tried to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a part of making records, and sometimes you're so involved with it that it's hard. Like you either don't know what to think, or maybe you're listening to it like, man, I don't know if this is going to be great or not. And then someone hears it, and they're like, oh, this is amazing. And because you're so like involved in it, you're so surrounded by it. It's hard to really gauge how people are going to react.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I remember when I heard it, I was kind of casually listening. I was working on something. I don't remember what it was, but I was casually working on something, and I'm like, man, this record's pretty good. So then I started paying more attention to the album, and yeah, it's, for me personally, I think that. As someone because like I said, I remember when the debut came out. I think I pretty much own every record the band's put out. This one's definitely one of the better ones, to be honest.
That was the best compliment you can give, because it's for me the same when I listen to new music. I have the chance. I have the office job, so I work on a PC or on a Mac, and I have 3 monitors that I'm working. And while I do my job, I have Spotify mostly. Playing some stuff in the background, and somehow there's a new band, or there's a band with a new record, and I put it on play, but I work, so I'm focused on my work. And there are some albums that catch my attention while they're just rotating in the background, and these are the albums that I keep in my mind. Other albums I hear one time and then I forget about it, but if a song or an album catches me, these are the good ones. And if it breaks my focus and drains my attention, then this is a good sign.
Yeah.
So thank you for this.
Yeah, it's cool, man. You grew up on power metal in the 90s like I did. That's the really cool thing about this interview as well.
Yeah.
Some of our favorite records, some of the Rage albums. I mean, I always followed Gravedigger, bands like that, Running Wild, some of these power metal bands, like I said, we grew up on the same stuff, which is really cool. And now you're in one of those bands, which is pretty interesting. So, I'm going to end it off here. Do you have any last words for the fans that'll be checking out this interview?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you. So if you listen to this interview, that means somehow our music has reached you. And for me, it's so great to hear that you live on the other end of the world, but it's great to see how music connects us. So I'm quite sure if we would meet somewhere else, maybe in a totally different place, we would have a great evening together, having a beer together and listening to that all stuff. And I think this makes this metal scene so unique. And it doesn't depend how old you are. Even younger guys still know these old albums. And I'm very proud that I can be part of this scene, and I'm very proud of everybody like you who keeps it alive. So everybody who listens now should be somehow be the same kind of a human being. And I salute you, and maybe you give our album a try. I would be happy to be part of your listening session as well. So thank you.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.